5 seconds.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to yet another YouTube live, alhamdulillah, with our esteemed scholar, Sheikh Amr Jamil. Sheikh Amr, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Umar?
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh, how are you? You all right?
Alhamdulillah. I think you've already preempted your Umrah by shaving before you go.
Well, the last time we were both sat here, I think both of us had hair and we didn't really look much alike. But today, alhamdulillah, good news. We're looking more alike. I say good news, maybe good news for me, not so much for you. For everyone that's just joining us, you will be aware, alhamdulillah, that now we've had many sessions on our YouTube live with Sheikh Amr, where alhamdulillah we use the benefit and we use this next hour to get an insight into a topic of some sort, and then Sheikh Amr gives us some questions and answers. Today is about journeying to the Holy Lands, and in particular, our focus, inshallah, is going to be on Umrah. Now, if you haven't guessed, Sheikh Amr is just back from Umrah. So that's going to be our starting point, inshallah, of today's podcast. I've not yet been, but my haircut is for maybe slightly different reasons. Sheikh Amr, you're just back now, and I think I was just wondering, as you were away, alhamdulillah, you've obviously been a VVVIP this year, where you've been to Hajj, alhamdulillah, earlier on in the year, and then you went to Umrah this year also. How many is that in total, then? How many times is that you've been now in total?
A lot. I've lost count. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's great. And this, and we were just talking about this, but you've obviously just come back. How are things there now? How are things developing? How was your experience?
I think that the thing with Umrah is that because there's a lot of construction going on, you know, with the Haram. I mean, I went in June, so that was 6 months ago, and then I've gone again at the end of November. And even in that time, you know, certain things which were open, certain routes that I would take were closed off this time round.
Okay.
So you quickly, you know, realize like which way you can go, which way you can't go. So I think because there's so much construction going on, they've made it very much like a one-way system. I found this time Medina, Munawwara, it used to be a lot more relaxed in terms of going in and out. I think that's also becoming a lot more systemized in terms of, like, you know, traffic flow and stuff. The way they're directing people, again, it feels in some ways like more becoming like a one-way kind of system, although it's not as much as Makkah.
Okay.
The other thing I think I found was that it just doesn't seem to be any quiet time now. So, you know, before you would say, kind of, look, advise people, you can do Umrah, go in the morning after Fajr, like 7, 8 o'clock. People go back to the hotels and go to have the breakfast and go to bed. That's a quiet time. Go after Isha, about an hour or two, or in the middle of the night. But we had quite a large group, and people were going at different times, and even the people that went later, like 2 in the morning, were still saying it was busy. So I think now the thing is just the general volume of people going is growing. So it just seems to be busy all the time. No matter what time you go to the Haram, it's just busy 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Great. And I mean, we've got lots of questions to get through, a lot of interest. But as we're having this conversation, certain things will come to mind. Did you go to Makkah first or Medina first? And this is something that maybe a lot of people have been asking and wondering, you know, is there a right way to do it, or is it a preferred way? What would you say to that?
That's a very interesting question, because I think this is the first time, maybe the first time I've ever actually gone to Medina first. No, I've done it before. This is the second time I've done this. I've gone to Medina first and then to Makkah. Normally I go straight into Makkah. You do the Umrah and all the rest of it, and you really push yourself physically. And then usually Medina is, you know, kind of relaxing a couple of days. You're usually ill by then, and it suits you. It suits the kind of slower pace. This time round, what happened was we flew into Medina. The advantage of that, of course, is you don't have to be in ihram.
Okay.
So you don't have this palaver of trying to put your ihram on in airports or on the airplane. So that it's easier from that perspective.
Mm.
um, and it's obviously from the airport to the hotel, it's like half an hour. But I think that the only issue is that then, people might get a bit more ill or whatever, or tired, so that by the time they get to Makkah, Umrah becomes a bit more difficult. But to be honest, you could do it either way. It was interesting to do it Medina first this time round. Usually, I think my preference still would be go to Makkah first.
Mm.
You do your duties, you do your Umrah, you do get all that done, you push yourself, and then you've got a couple of days in Medina. It's a bit more relaxed. It's less to do. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, a little bit of pressure off, as they say. Um, One of the things that I was wondering, and it'd be interesting to just rehear this. Obviously, I think actually we started off and we touched upon this, right? You've been to Hajj earlier on in the year, and then, alhamdulillah, within a short span of time, you're back there. You've gone to Umrah. There's a real interesting point to be made about the virtue of Umrah.
Mm,
And the reason I mentioned that is because, again, it was somebody that asked me, someone
mm,
close to me, who said,
yeah.
"Look, I know all about the virtue of Hajj. I
Mhm.
understand all about the virtue of Hajj and the importance of it, and what happens when you go to Hajj and you come back like a newborn baby. But what
Mm.
about Umrah? Do we really get, is it really on that kind of scale? What would be your thing to anybody that's wondering, how we look at Umrah in that respect?"
I think the Umrah, the way you need to want to look at Umrah is like the lesser pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Hajj is the greater pilgrimage. Hajj, obviously, you have to do once in a lifetime. It's like kind of iconic moment in your life, and because now that it's become so expensive, it really will be for most people just a once in a lifetime
Yeah.
experience. Umrah is more flexible. Umrah, you can go at different times of the year. Um, it's obviously less expensive. There's no set format. You can go for a day if you wanted. You go for 10 days. So there's more flexibility with the Umrah. The Umrah itself, scholars differ over whether it's an obligation or not.
Okay.
So two of the schools of thought believe it's an obligation. Two of the schools of thought believe it's a sunnah. So the
Yeah.
Hanafis and Malikis believe it's a sunnah. So you don't have to per se do it if you're following those schools, but there's certainly reward. I mean, probably the main hadith around Umrah is the fact that one Umrah to another Umrah is an expiation for the sins which are committed between the two. An Umrah done in Ramadan is also equivalent to Hajj in reward. So people sometimes go in Ramadan. Um, and there's another hadith, general hadith, talking about people do Hajj and Umrah, that they're like the deputations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they call on him, that he will respond to them. If they ask for forgiveness, he'll forgive them. So, and obviously just the merit of being in Makkah. In Makkah, every prayer you pray is multiplied by 100,000 times reward.
Mm.
So as you can imagine, if the congregational prayer itself is multiplied by 27. You go to the mosque and pray versus in the house 27 times more. Now, when you go to the Haram and you go to pray behind the Imam, so your prayer is going to get multiplied by 27 anyway.
Yeah.
Every prayer in Makkah is 100,000 as well. So you can
Okay.
do the maths. Was that 2.7 million? Is it
Yeah.
for each prayer? You're not going to get that anywhere. The other thing that people notice is that virtually after every prayer there is a janazah prayer. So
Yes.
people are dying all the time, or people nearby are coming there to get buried. So there'll be a janazah prayer more or less after every single prayer. So you're getting the reward of praying janazah prayer, which is a common obligation, especially for sisters who don't often go to janazah prayer. They will want to read up on how to pray janazah prayer, brush up, because it's
Mm.
not a common prayer for them. If you're quick enough out the blocks, and I always recommend this for the brothers in Medina, if you pray near the door where the green dome is, anywhere near the green dome. And as soon as the prayer is over, usually the Fajr prayer is a good one, or Asr. Fajr prayer, as soon as the prayer is over, basically bolt outside and join the procession, the Janazah procession, which is going into Jannat al-Baqi. Just join onto the crowd, and you can, and they'll allow you to go into Baqi, and you can actually witness a burial in Baqi, which is the traditional way of doing it, because there's no coffin. For example, coffins, we use them in the UK or in certain parts of the UK because of legal reasons. But there it's virtually the cup, because the coffin is the white sheets.
Mhm.
So you actually see somebody getting buried very, very simply. And you can partake in that reward as well. So those are the kind of practical things which you can do. Unfortunately, they're not very women friendly. So they don't allow women into the graveyard anymore. There was a time, once upon a time, I remember it, when females were allowed in the graveyard, but they've stopped it. Other changes they've made in Baqiyah is that before you could go in and visit and walk about, you could go up to the grave of Uthman, the third Khalifa. Now, again, the numbers are just so vast. They only allow you in after Fajr and Asr, and you basically like a one-way system. So you've only got like a one-way system, and they don't let you stand about either. So it's a bit more. It's not as it's not the way it used to be, unfortunately. I think that is probably the biggest change I'm seeing, is the high numbers of people. Everything's becoming more systemized. But in Medina, you have to get the app for the Nusuk app for the Rauda, for a slot in the Rauda. You get your 10 minutes and that's it. I mean, it's got its pros and cons, but everything's becoming more systemized. Everything's becoming more for like a mass market and becoming less individualized. So that's probably one of the biggest changes that I've seen there.
Yeah. Well, we'll take questions as we come in as well, Sheikh. And one of the questions has just come up just now by Safina Arshid. The last time I went to do Umrah was with my 3 young, very children. We stopped at Jeddah Airport, where we waited for 5 hours standing to be seen. It was extremely frustrating. Has this changed?
Yes, that's changed. So they've become much more efficient at the airports. Not that dissimilar to any other airport now. You will go through Jeddah very quickly. You're not going to stay. You're not going to have 5 hours now. It'll be an hour through passport control. Get your bags, and you're out. An hour and a half, 2 hours max. Hour and a half, you're out, and you're away. So it's completely changed now.
Alhamdulillah. I remember going when I went for Hajj. I was only 12, turning 13 years old, and actually my dad brought it up with me the other day. And they seen me from one of the people seen me from so far away. He came and he took me right to the front. He sat me on a chair, and I remember I honestly felt like I was just sat there for about 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, just forever sitting there waiting. But we were talking about the treatment of young people at that time and how obviously they do look after. I used to. Sorry, we're going off tangent, but I thought it's quite funny. I used to go out to the shop and come back with, honestly, bags full of fruit. My mum used to say, "I just give you a couple of rial to go and get a drink. How have you come back with all this fruit?" And it used to be just people seeing you, young Haji are here, take the stuff. So alhamdulillah, that I take it that sort of warm feeling is still, you still feel it. There's still hospitality in Medina, still more.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
generally, I think that the Saudi, the Saudis I think are making a lot of effort to make it, to come up to scratch, raise their standards. I mean, Jeddah has got a new airport now. I mean, when we did Hajj, there was e-lanes where basically you don't even do anything. You don't see anything. They just scan your face as you're walking, and you walk through. So it's definitely changed. There's a lot more females now working in the airports. So they're moving towards a certain direction. They're trying to become more systemized. Even at Hajj, they were trying to become more systemized. They had somebody welcoming you and to try to direct you and so on. But the airport's definitely vastly improved. I do remember those days of waiting 5-6 hours, and we were told that. This is back in 2016 or whatever. I remember those 5 hour, 6 hour waits,
Yeah.
with the Hajjis, but that's not happening now.
Alhamdulillah.
Now it's like, an hour and you're out.
Right. Great. We've got lots to dive into. It's 20 past 8 for anyone that's just logged in. We're on our YouTube live with Sheikh Ahmed Jamil. Journeying to the Holy Lands is our topic, and in particular, we are focusing on Umrah today. And Sheikh, we've gone straight into, because this is the type of topic that it is, and there's lots of areas to cover, and there's so many issues. But I was hoping just off the bat, somebody that has maybe joined us who's considering going to Umrah, maybe just be going to Umrah in the next couple of weeks. And we're not looking for the exact, but even just a brief run through of what the main aspects of Umrah are might be useful at this point before we go into any of the key elements.
Yeah, well, I would say to people, if they're going off for Umrah for the first time, it's. I think if you're going in the first time, I always do advise go with a group, because if you're going with a group, there's a sense of them looking after you, a responsibility, and
Yeah.
it's not so much knowing what to do; it's the fact that you've never been to that place before. Getting your bearings right, like knowing which gates you're going through. Like for example, we take a group. We took an syllabus group last year. Although our hotel was very near the Haram, like we walked down to the Haram, and then before we went in, I stopped them. I told them to turn around. I said, look back at your hotel, right? There's the hotels. There's the clock tower. Okay, if you're in the Haram and you get lost, it's very easy to split up. Wherever you are in the Haram, I said, the only thing you need to do is look up wherever the clock tower is, head towards that direction.
Yeah.
And when you come at that gate, turn right and you'll see the hotel. So it's like simple, basic things like that. Because people get lost. I mean, our group, even with that, we had an elderly couple who we'd gone in at Dhuhr time and it was Isha time. And, somebody was saying, look, have you seen my mum? The last time I saw her was Dhuhr time. So we were thinking of even sending a search party in. So I think if you're going for the first time, definitely go with a group. If you've been before, then obviously you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But essentially, if you're coming from, most people will be coming into Jeddah Airport, right? And Jeddah Airport, you have to be in Ihram before you get to Jeddah Airport. What is Ihram? Ihram basically means you're in a very sacred state. Like when you pray, before you could pray, you have to do wudu, right? You have to make sure your clothes are pure. You have to make sure your place is prayer. A place of prayer is pure. You have to, for example, if you're female, you need to cover your hair. So certain things you have to do before you can pray. You have to face the Qibla, right? And then when you go into the prayer, right, during the prayer, there's certain things which are not allowed for you to do, such as talk. You're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to eat and drink. So Ihram is something similar to that, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking you out of your normal state to put you in a different state, in a spiritual state. And so certain things when you go into Ihram become haram on you, such as wearing stitched clothing for men, such as wearing perfume for males and females, such as covering the face for a female. So certain restrictions are placed upon you, right? So you're in this kind of heightened state, and that's to pull you away from the dunya and to focus you on the task at hand, which is to visit God's house with seeking God's pleasure. So before you land in Jeddah, you're going to go into Ihram. You have to have your sheets on. If you're a male, if you're female, take your niqab off. And before you land in Jeddah by maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, you want to read 2 nafil if you've got wudu in the plane. Read your 2 nafil. You can pray it sitting. And then you make an intention that I'm doing Umrah, and you do the talbiyah. Talbiyah is labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. And as soon as you do the 2, you're now in a state of Ihram. If you wish to do Umrah for somebody else, somebody who's passed away, you can do so. So you could say, I'm doing Umrah for my deceased father. I'm doing Umrah for my grandfather, and so forth. And some scholars even allow you to do it for the living, right? But all the schools agree that you can do it for the deceased. So then that's you now into a state of ihram. You have to be careful. You can't use soap. You can't use the refreshing towel, that you get in the meals, in the airport meals, the airplane meals. And then you get to the airport, and then you get to the hotel. The first thing you'll do is, once you get to the hotel, probably total time from you landing and getting to the hotel is, I would say, about 3 to 4 hours, right?
Okay.
From the time you land, an hour in the airport to get through, maybe give yourself another half an hour to get your luggage. And then from there, transport is an hour and a half, and that's it, you're in Makkah. You go to your hotel, not sign in, what do you call it? You check in. You check in, take your bags up. So you say, look, okay, go upstairs, check in, freshen up, go to the bathroom. Maybe if it's breakfast time, have some food. And then most people just want to get the Umrah done, over and done with. But you can take a rest if you want. If you're not feeling well, you can have a rest. It's just that you'll be in Ihram. And then you head down to the Haram. You do your Umrah. Umrah is very simple. You walk through the main gate. When the first time you see the Kaaba, you stop and make a dua. It said that whatever dua you make when you first see the Kaaba will be accepted. People try to memorize things. I just tell people, look, whatever you've memorized up until that point, that's it. Put your books away and be in the moment. Just be in the moment. When you see the Kaaba, it takes over you, right? Your emotions, everything will take over you, and just whatever comes from your heart, make that dua. Once you've made the dua, then and all this time you're reciting talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, God, I'm here. And then when you have a look and you see a green light on the wall, right? And you see people putting their hands up. When you see that, you know that that's the black stone, right? You head towards that, and then that's it. You face it. Just say Allahu Akbar, or you say Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, or whatever dhikr you want to do. It doesn't matter. You make an ishara like that because you can't physically touch the black stone. There's too many people. So you do that, and kiss your hands, and as if you've kissed the black stone, and that's it. Once you start the tawaf, the 7 circuits, right? The tawaf, you stop doing the talbiyah. You stop saying labbaik Allahumma labbaik. There's no prescribed dua that you have to do when you're doing tawaf. So my teachers used to say, look, just pick a different dhikr. Like for the first one, maybe just do la ilaha illallah. For the second one, maybe do astaghfirullah. Third one, subhanallah, whatever it is. Meals will uncover the right shoulder. It's sunnah. If you forget to do it, don't worry. It doesn't invalidate your tawaf or anything like that.
Okay.
And the first 3 circuits, if you can, it's very difficult now because it's so busy. But if you can kind of lightly jog, if you can, for the first 3, and then just normally walk for the next 4. So you do it once you've done 7.
Yeah.
You completed the tawaf. You read 2 rak'ahs anywhere in the masjid. This is the 2 rak'ahs Maqam Ibrahim. And then behind that, there'll be Zamzam. You go there, you drink Zamzam facing the Kaaba and make dua. Make dua with every sip that you drink the Zamzam, you make dua. And then you head towards Safa Marwa. It's called the Sa'i, Mas'a. It's signposted. Everyone knows where you to go. And then you walk from Safa to Marwa. That's 1. And you do 7 circuits, which means that you start at Safa and you finish at Marwa. There's a green light where you run a bit quicker if you're a male. And then once you do that, another important point is, again, remember I was saying it's become like a one-way system. Before you could, at Marwa, walk back into the Haram. Now you can't. They force you out the Marwa gate now.
Okay.
So at the Marwa gate now, this is important because if you've never been there, you might get disoriented, like, where am I now? Right? So you have to, that's what I'm saying, like, say the clock tower's a good sign. You just walk all the way around to the front again. And then you need to go and get your hair cut. Now, a lot of people, what you'll see is they come out of Marwa and start cutting the hair. You don't have to cut your hair straight away, right? Do not cut your hair straight away. As you're walking, you will get people coming up to you and saying, do you want a haircut? 10 reals. It's 10 reals, basically, right? It's like £2. So a lot of people will go with them to the barbers. They'll take you up to the barber's shop, get your hair cut. That's out of Ihram. For females, go back to the hotel and you bunch up all your hair, and you take off like a couple of maybe like 2 inches at the bottom. Just cut it, just to ensure. I always tell them to cut a little bit extra, and that's it. I mean, if you've the question comes up, do you have to be out of ihram before you can cut your hair or somebody else's hair? This question does come up. Scholars do differ, but the Hanafi school says if you've completed everything, and the last thing to do is just to shave to come out of ihram, you can actually cut your own hair, inshallah ta'ala. And that's it. That's the Umrah done. You can then stay in Makkah, do extra nafil tawafs whenever you feel like it. If you want to do another Umrah, maybe take a rest for a while, then you just get any taxi and say to the Masjid Aisha. They all know it. Masjid Aisha, I don't know, 20 riyals, whatever it is. You go to the mosque, and I mean, I just did it recently, so I just put my sheets on, got the taxi, literally went, I told the taxi, just stay here, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Went inside, prayed 2 rak'ahs, done my intention, done talbiyah, got back in the taxi, and I came back. It's literally 10 minutes away, and that's how you can repeat your Umrah. You can do as many as you want.
Okay, great. There's so many things. Well, alhamdulillah, you managed to tick off a lot of the things that we wanted to kind of explore. This question is, can someone do more than one Umrah in one visit? If so, where is the official miqat point? So I think we've just mentioned that. This is maybe a slight different question, and if there's something in this question you think that's not answered, then you can do that as well, Sheikh. But one of the things
go on.
One of the things a lot of people are also wondering is, if I'm there, I'm in Makkah, am I best to be trying to do as many Umrahs as I can in different people's names and family members' names that are passed away, etc.? Or do I do one Umrah and then focus my attention on trying to do my ibadat?
So the thing is, if you're in the Maliki school, that's actually, you should only do one Umrah. So the Malikis actually said the one Umrah, that's it per visit. Other schools don't have a limitation. You can do as many as you want. But if you don't want to do extra Umrahs, you can do extra tawafs anyway. And every time you do a nafil tawaf, you can do a nafil tawaf for someone else. Like one nafil tawaf you could do for your uncle. Next time you do nafil tawaf, do it for somebody else. So you can be doing nafil tawafs for different people, or you could do an extra Umrah if you want. It's entirely up to yourself.
Okay, excellent. Can we use, I think you might have touched upon this, can we use scented items whilst in ihram, such as soap, for example? What happens if you do, might be the more important aspect to that.
No, you can't use scented soap. You do get unscented stuff that you can take with you. You can even get unscented sanitizer. I mean, I got it from Asda last time. It was very good. A couple of £, right? There's no scent to it whatsoever. So you can take sanitizer, if you want to make sure your hands are clean before eating and things like that. And avoid soap. Now, if you do end up using soap, then there will be a penalty, which is in the Hanafi school would be around about 30 riyals sadaqah you need to give. Now, the sadaqah for the Hanafi school, you don't have to restrict it to Makkah. It can be like, for example, you could give it to Gaza or Syria or something like that. What I tend to tell people is, look, just tally up, just keep a tally. Well, what I used soap off, a few hairs came out, this happened. You tally up all the things, and at the end, when you're finished, you ask like a imam or somebody, this is all the things I did wrong, what do I need to do? And they'll tell you how much you need to give, inshallah.
And what type of things, that list that you're talking about, Sheikh, right? Where you say keep a list of things in your head that you think you've done wrong. What are the sort of things you would expect to see, or what are the common things we usually see on that list?
I think probably the two most common ones I get asked is use soap, which is one of them, and hairs. I pulled my hair out. I was scratching my beard. So I'd say, look, for every hair that's come out, one or two, about 2-3 riyals for each of the hair, right? So let's say approximately 10 came out, just give 20-30 riyals sadaqah. Soap again, 30 riyals sadaqah. That's usually it. People tend to think, oh, I've invalidated my ihram. You don't invalidate your ihram. Oh, I need to give a sacrifice. There's only certain things that will necessitate a sacrifice. Otherwise, it's usually a sadaqah, and sometimes it's nothing. I mean, someone's asking here a question about one Umrah with intention of reward going to more than one person. Can you make
Multiple intentions.
multiple intentions. Yes, you can. According to the Hanafi school, you could do multiple intentions, inshallah ta'ala. That's not a problem.
Is that including your, for example, it's your first Umrah you're about to go and do, you're doing it with intention for yourself, but you're going to make intention for others as well? Or is
No, no,
that
no.
no,
If you're
this
doing
is
no, if you're doing Umrah for yourself,
yep.
then you're doing it for yourself,
Yeah.
right? If you've done Umrah for yourself, maybe your second Umrah, you might think, okay, I want to do it for my deceased father and my
Yep.
deceased grandfather as well, for example, two people. That's what the person's asking. Can I make
Okay, great.
mention of two people? The other thing is, remember, Nafil Tawaf, you can do the exact same thing with Nafil Tawaf.
Okay,
So
great.
you could do it for multiple people as well.
Okay. We have another question here which says, is the prayer area for the reward of Jamaat only considered to be the four walls of the masjid if there is space, or can you pray in the streets, in the hotel room, for example, or the malls and get the same reward?
So there's two opinions, whether the 100,000 times is restricted to the masjid itself or is it Makkah. So many scholars say it's actually Makkah. Anywhere in Makkah that you pray, it'll be 100,000 times reward. Obviously, the reward of praying in congregation, being in the front row, and then the next row, that's another reward. In terms of praying in, because sometimes what happens is at a certain point they will close the gates and you'll be praying outside, just outside the gates. So that's an extension of the congregation anyway. In terms of the hotel rooms, if the hotel is extremely close to the Haram, like the clock towers, and the rows are extending all the way back to the hotel, then the hotel becomes an extension of the rows. But if there's a gap, then you get into different opinions. If there's a significant gap, then the Hanafis would have an issue with it. Malikis basically say that as long as you can follow the congregation, so you get into different opinions. But I would say you've come all the way, you've traveled hundreds and thousands of miles to get there, and then you can't, move from your hotel room down to the lobby. So a little bit effort. You need to put in a little bit effort for that extra reward, inshallah ta'ala.
Yeah. Here's a couple of questions coming in from the sisters. The first one being, when breastfeeding, do any additional steps need to be taken after feeding in terms of ihram?
Not to my knowledge, no.
We have one from Anayat Dar. My mum passed away who was non-Muslim. Can I still perform Umrah for my mum?
So acts of ibadah, and donating the reward, that's for Muslims. That's done for Muslims.
If we have the opportunity, can we pursue touching the Kaaba, aware that it gets congested, potentially aggressive, etc.? And this is from a sister. This question comes, what are sisters to do, Sheikh? We see guys kind of going in for the kill, right? A lot of the time, or they hustle and bustle their way through. And sisters obviously have to weigh up this concept of, do they really throw themselves in to try and touch the Kaaba, but potentially crossing lines that they shouldn't be? How do we weigh this up?
Yeah, first of all, touching the Kaaba is recommended. However, harming another Muslim is impermissible. So something impermissible, you don't do something recommended by doing something which is impermissible. Which is why the black stone, just there's no point trying to even get to it, because you will have to push a few people, which is not allowed. In terms of, the sisters do have an advantage because of the way the rules are. They only allow people in the sheets to do tawaf on the ground floor for males. So females, will be less restricted. They can go into the bottom floor and do as much tawaf as they want, because you can't really tell a woman's in ihram or not, whereas with males you can. So there is a bit more opportunity for them to be doing more tawaf. You won't tend to be able to touch the Kaaba on the side of the black stone where the door is. The quietest part of the Kaaba is after the Hatim. Hatim's a semicircle, so you'll basically black stone. You go past the Hatim. That's the busiest bit. After the Hatim, before you get to the Yemeni corner, it tends to get a little bit quieter there. So depending on what time of day it is and what the crowd's like, you might be able to sneak in there. The only other thing to remember is that they do scent the Kaaba. So if you're in ihram, if you're in a state of ihram, you should actually avoid touching the Kaaba because it's scented. So you should only do that at a time when you're not actually in ihram. So just be aware of that.
That's actually a great point, which didn't actually occur. We're coming on to $1 million question right now because, of course, as you know, the rules have changed as of lately, and in order to access, as you say, the Mataf area, men need to be in a haram, and unless you're in a haram, then can't really be accessing it. Um, what then be what then is the view? Because many people are saying, well, I've traveled all this way, spent all this money, and I can't even go down and be there. So what they do is they put their haram on even though they're not doing Umrah. And they think, well, it's a man-made rule, and so I'm not really breaching anything. Or is that flawed in your view? And should you really be only accessing that area if you're actually doing your Umrah?
Yeah, so look, I know people will get different opinions on this. When people ask me this, I always say, look, you need to go and ask somebody who's holds the opinion that it's allowed. So, it was quite obvious what my position is. And the reason that's my position, okay, you can say it's a man-made rule, so are visas, so are other things as well. But why are the rules there in the first place, right? The rules are there in the first place because of the sheer volume of people. And you have to give everybody a fair chance. If you allow people who are not in ihram down, it just becomes more and more congested.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I mean, I've done Umrah and I try and be very careful in Tawaf, but it's very difficult not to step on somebody's dress or something. So the more crowded it gets, the harder it gets. Nobody wants to bump into the opposite sex, and unfortunately, you even in the best of places, you get people who have evil intentions. There used to be
Yeah.
pickpockets in the past, and as much as it pains me to say this, there are men who will take opportunities, let's just say, with females. So in the interest of keeping the females safe, I think that the less men that are in the bottom floor, the better. I think they should only be the ones that are doing ihram. I think it's a decent policy. It's a good policy. You want to do extra nafil tawaf, just do it on the first floor.
Yeah.
Do it on the top floor, Or they say, well, that's a bit more walking. Well, for every step you're taking, it's reward. And the thing is, what else are you there to do? You're not there to eat ice cream, in the ice cream parlors and the clock towers. You're there. That's what you've come for. You've come for to gain reward. And the more time you spend tawaf, the better. Actually, if you're spending more time walking the tawaf, you can do zikr as you're doing the tawaf. You can read Quran. It's less crowded as well. It's more enjoyable. So I think that people should just follow the rules and maybe see. This is the thing we think in our mind that if I kiss the black stone 100 times, that's going to be I'll get closer to God. Whereas in that situation, the person who actually thinks to himself, I'd love to kiss the black stone, but I'm going to end up harming other Muslims. That action is probably more beloved to God than the guy who kissed it 100 times. So the man who just did the one Umrah, did the tawaf once on the bottom floor, is probably closer. That's probably more pleasurable to God than the person who's saying, no, I need to get as many rewards in. God doesn't need your tawafs. God doesn't need my tawafs, right? That's just an excuse for us to be forgiven. What we need is God's pleasure, right? And this is why for a female who's maybe menstruating, right, and she gets to the haram, she can't do tawaf in a state of menstruation, and many females would find it difficult because I've come all the way and I'm waiting to go inside. But the thing is, you're not going inside. Why are you not going inside? Because you're trying to obey God. So by you not going inside, you're getting as much reward as everyone else, because the only reason you're not doing it is because God has told you not to do it. Like fasting Ramadan. For women who's menstruating, she's eating and drinking, and by eating and drinking, she's obeying God. Right? Even though everyone's fasting, but by her eating and drinking, she is obeying God, and she is getting the reward as if she was fasting. Because had she not had she, that menstruation not occurred, she would have kept fasting, and God knows that. So actions are but by intentions, as you know the hadith. So my personal belief is that give other people a chance, make their tawaf by making their tawaf more enjoyable. That will get you more reward doing it. So my personal opinion is, no, you want to go on the bottom floor, go and go to Masjid Aisha, do another Umrah by all means. But your Nafil tawaf, go upstairs and leave the females to enjoy the ground floor for a change. Give the females have an advantage for a change. Let them enjoy themselves by doing more tawaf on the bottom floor, inshallah.
Great, Jazakallah. For those who have just joined, alhamdulillah, it's been an extremely beneficial talk on journeying the Holy Lands, and in particular, our focus today has been on Umrah with Sheikh Amr Jamil. You are on iCyllabus Live. Please do visit the website www.iCyllabus.org for any further details you may require on courses that are ongoing, short courses that are ongoing, and inshallah anything more in depth that you require to see. Sheikh Amr, we're on our last 15 minutes or so. Anybody watching, please do continue your questions coming in, because inshallah we've got 15 minutes or so for anyone wanting to ask anything, and there's no such thing as a stupid question, so feel free to ask. We have one question here from a brother who says, as a man, if you do not cut your hair, does it invalidate your Umrah or your Hajj?
If you don't cut your hair, then you will remain in ihram for the end of time. So that's not a good idea. And the schools differ. So for the Shafis, if you cut a couple of hairs, that's you out of ihram. For the Hanafis, a quarter of your head, and you're out of ihram. There's no real reason not to cut your hair. If you don't want to shave it, if you don't want to look like me and Haji, then you can just go to the barber, and they'll do a machine. They'll just take an inch. Or there's other barbers there. You can go and get a haircut, or you just need to take it's like maybe a centimeter, right, or over a quarter of your hair. So it's not a lot you need to take off, but shaving or cutting the hair is definitely a must. There is more reward for shaving your hair off. So I tend to tell people that it'll grow back. Don't be so attached to your hair. The reward that you're going to get, you're never going to get the opportunity again. Just do it. So you have to cut your hair.
Inshallah. We have another question here from Jav. What are the rulings regarding wearing slippers throughout the Umrah? I struggle walking on hard floor as I get calluses on the balls of my feet. So, Sheikh, in general, this has come up quite a lot. What do we wear? Do we wear one pair inside? Do we change? What's your advice in terms of footwear then?
I mean, the question is about permissibility versus what's advisable. This is one definite change I've seen over the years. I did my first Umrah back in 1997. Were you born then?
I was.
Okay. Okay. Right. So 1997, right, was my first Umrah. I was very quiet. It was very uncommon to see anybody wear slippers or anything doing tawaf or the Safa Marwa. Over the years, I've just seen a steady increase. I started seeing it more in Safa Marwa, but now you see people in tawaf, and it's extraordinary the amount of people that wear slippers in tawaf, and then people lose their slippers, and then you trip up over their slippers. It's a bit of a hazard, to be honest. So I think that if you don't have a reason to wear it, if you went to the mosque, you wouldn't wear shoes or slippers. You would, take your shoes off. So that's a normal mosque. This is the mosque of mosques. And I know that the marble is hard, but I think that if you're fit and healthy, try to avoid it. If you have to, so like some people have foot conditions or some issues, I would say that you should wear a clean. You should have a clean pair for inside the haram only. It's like the way you wear slippers in the house. You don't wear them outside. So it's just for the haram. But again, tawaf, if you can avoid it, better, because that is definitely in the mosque. Safa Marwa, there's a difference of opinion whether it's now considered part of the mosque or not. If you take the opinion it's not part of the mosque, then wearing your slippers there is less of a issue.
Okay. Jazakallah for that. And a point of clarification for Asad, who says, so outside of the Umrah, when one performs tawaf, we don't need to perform 7 rounds, and each round is a nafil, or does it then become compulsory to do 7 once you started one?
So tawaf basically means 7 circuits, right? Tawaf means 7 circuits. And this question's come up actually. Someone asked me this in this Umrah trip as well. Is it just one circuit? No, I said no. The tawaf is 7 circuits.
Hmm.
So if you begin one circuit, you need to do another 6.
Um,
And then you have to
while
pray the two. You have to pray 2 rak'ahs after every tawaf. You have to pray 2 rak'ahs.
yeah, and by that we mean by going round after your 7th round, you then pray your 2. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. While in Makkah, should one prioritize reading Quran or Salawat? Example. I didn't get to see the end of that. Example: reading Dilail
Dalal Khairat.
Khairat.
Yeah. Speak on salawat.
Okay.
So I think that what you should do is mix it up, right? Because every act of worship has got its own, you could say, spiritual energy.
Hmm.
Dhikr's got its own energy. Istighfar's got its own energy. Quran has got its own energy. Even just sitting, looking at the Kaaba is worship,
So,
right? So actually, just to sit there and look at the Kaaba. I would even add something that's not often said, which is just reflection.
hmm.
Actually, just sit there and actually just reflect. Think about God, think about your life. Just thinking, right, is ibadah. So I think all of those, to do a mixture of all those, and obviously nafil salah, nafil tawaf, all of those things. I think mix it up, do as many things as you can. Visit the graveyard, for example, Jannat al-Mala,
Hmm.
which is quite easy. If you come out of a marwa, you take a left and you walk for about 10 minutes. Ask anyone where Jannat al-Mala is, they'll tell you. You come to a road, cross the road, and the graveyards there. Go and visit our mother Khatija radiallahu anha. So mix it up as much as possible.
Okay, great. An interesting one. Can women who are older than childbearing age go to Umrah without a mahram?
So according to some schools, a woman a woman needs a male mahram. Like the Hanafis are quite strict on that. Other schools, like the Maliki school, say that she can go with a group. The Shafis say that she can go with a few other women. So because now you'll be going in you tend to go in groups anyway.
Hmm.
It would be allowed according to the, say, like the Malikis and the Shafis, because for them Umrah, the first Umrah is an obligation anyway. But certainly Malikis, if they're doing multiple Umrahs and stuff, it would be fine according to them.
I know you've touched upon this earlier on, and we'll come on to the next question that's on the screen just in a moment. You mentioned earlier on, Sheikh, when you first walk in, you're seeing the Kaaba for the first time. Somebody's asking, when you first see the Kaaba, what should I be doing, or what are the things that I need to bear in mind, or what are the must-dos at that moment?
When you walk into the Haram.
When you're seeing the Kaaba for the first time.
So the hadith says whatever dua you make when you first see the Kaaba will be accepted. So there's no specific dua, but I always say, make it from the heart. Make it from the heart, whatever it is.
Okay. We've got Ayman Latif. Salam, will this live recorded so that we can watch again in the future? Jazakallah. Inshallah, yes, this has been recorded, and all you have to do is click on to the iSyllabus YouTube page, and you will see that there's been many sessions, inshallah, just like this one, where you'll be able to access it at any point, inshallah. Okay. Next question is, if male is doing second Umrah, what's the minimum hair length cut required again? And well, I'll let you answer, Sheikh. I was going to try.
Shafi school, a couple of hairs.
Okay.
And for the Hanafis, it's like a centimeter, you could say, from at least a quarter of the head.
Okay. And I've seen a question be asked, if somebody is like completely bald, right? So let's say, they have bladed it all the way and then they've gone back again. am I right in thinking they should just apply it and do it as if they're doing it again?
If they've already had like been shaved,
Yep.
then they would basically just go to. I'd say them to go to a barber, and they'll just do it with a blade. A little bit will come off.
Okay.
It's like
Great.
stubble.
Great. Is there any precedence from Hadith or Sunnah to support your view on leaving the mataf for the sisters or not doing multiple tawafs in the mataf outside of Umrah?
The mataf is basically the ground floor. So as far as I know, males and females have always done tawaf. It's just that you've got to remember the numbers now are unprecedented. I was speaking to a taxi driver, and he was telling me, his Bangladeshi taxi driver, 26 years he's been in the Haram, right? So he
Wow.
came in the late 90s, and he told me that this is in this trip. He said to me that he goes that it used to be dead when I first came. Like you could touch the black stone as much as you wanted. There's no one there. And he goes, in fact, he goes, we never used to go to the Haram in the middle of the night because we were scared because there's nobody there.
So,
And he was just telling me this. So from that time, right, to this time, and then he was telling me now it's what it's like, how busy it is. So the thing is, these are all kind of new manifestations. If you listen to any of your grandparents that tell you did Hajj in the 70s, there was no hotels in the 70s. People used to invite you into their homes. People used to take their like flour with them, their atta with them and stuff. All this is quite recent. So up until that time, this wouldn't have been even a question because there was no rush. There was no issue about males and females. There wouldn't have been that many people. But it's quite a new thing. It's quite a new thing now.
absolutely. Sheikh, something just came to my mind there. There's been a bit of a discussion around who do you give money to, all right? Some people go with the intention of the one to give sadaqah. Some people are of the view that you shouldn't actually give to some of the beggars who are seen as professional beggars. Some people, you're in a food queue, someone comes up to you and starts to ask you for a meal. Is there somewhere specific you should, is there things maybe you should look out for? Is there somewhere in particular you should donate?
So they have, again, this is another part of the kind of Saudi clampdown. They've got rid of a lot of the beggars that used to be there. You used to get these people who had like arms cut off and things
That's
like
right.
that. That's all gone now. You do get some kids selling like tissues and things like that. So what I tend to say to people is, look, when you're in a situation where you're unsure whether they're legit or not, either give them something like a date or something. So like, buy some sweets or something from the shop, right? Just keep them in your pocket and give them a sweet or something. Or, if you've got extra like a banana or something like that, give them food. Just try and give them food items. If not, try to keep loose change, right? And just give them like a real, because a real is what, 20p or something.
Okay.
That's not going to harm you in any way.
Yeah.
If they're genuine, then you've helped somebody. If they're not genuine, then you've not really encouraged it too much either. And if they've got something, you can like tissues or something, give them 2 reals, just buy something off them. So it's you're encouraging them to sell stuff rather than begging. Or what sometimes you can do, you get other people who try and make an effort to try and sell something, maybe like a cloth or something you don't need. You just buy it. And then when you see a beggar, you give them that, So, there's lots of ways around it. Or say to the beggar, if it's food, I'll take you, come with me.
Come get a
I'll
meal.
take you and I'll feed you, And then if they're genuine, then they'll come. If they're not, then they're not genuine. Yeah.
Is wudu necessary for tawaf and sa'i?
According to the Hanafi school, it is not a condition for the sa'i. It's sunnah. But according to other schools, it is a condition for tawaf and sa'i. So for the Hanafis, you'd have to have wudu for tawaf. If you break your wudu for any reason, wherever you are in the tawaf, you stop, go and do wudu, and come back and resume from that point.
Okay.
So it's not a problem. And this place inside the Haram now, you can do wudu now. So between the black stone and the Yemeni corner, that side of the Kaaba, if you go towards the stairs and ask any of the guards, they'll show you where the wudu facility is for males and females there, so you can do it inside, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. we're coming up for 9 o'clock, inshallah. But if anyone has any questions, please do keep them coming in. There's one question here which says, when reading Qaza Salah, is it still rewarded the same that we've mentioned, which is 100,000?
It's a very good question. I do remember something I heard from Shafi scholars about encouraging people to do qada in the Haram because of the virtue that salahs are multiplied. So I do remember something, but I don't fully remember exactly. But one thing's for certain: one qada salah is not going to equal to 100,000 qada salahs. So if you think, I've got 200,000 to make up, I'll just do it, 2 salahs there and that's be done. That's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, same person's asked, I'm on Umrah at the moment, alhamdulillah. Can I do second Umrah for intention of a blessing, i.e. children, as I don't have children yet?
The Umrah would be done as an act of ibadah. It's an act of worship. But then you can make dua. You can make dua for children. So definitely you can do the Umrah and then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by for the sake of this Umrah, which is done for your sake alone, grant me children and so on. I think the thing that's come to me about the other question, which is a good question about the qada prayer, is that many of us, when we go to Umrah, will be travelers. If you're intending to stay there less than 15 days, according to the Hanafis, you're a traveler. According to other schools, less than 4 days. And if you are a traveler, as you know, you don't have to pray sunnah. But if you've got missed prayers, apart from the further prayer you're praying with the imam, the rest of your time you should be just doing qada prayers.
Okay.
So, instead of the sunnah prayers, the Hajj, whenever you go to the Haram and you're praying, just keep doing qada, keep making up all your qada prayers. That's more of a priority.
Okay, Jazakallah. Adil asks, what is the position on praying behind the imams at the Haramain? Should you pray behind them and repeat or not repeat, etc.?
Just pray, bro.
If taking an 11-month baby, can I make intention for the baby?
Yeah, so there's a hadith, Ali Hada al-Hajj, this child, and the Prophet said, Na'am, yes, walakil ajr, and you have the reward as well. So yeah, if you take a child, a baby, you can, inshallah, their Umrah, for them, the Umrah is obviously not, it's not obviously like an adult, right? Anything that done by a child under the age of puberty is considered to be nafal, but they do get the reward. They are rewarded for doing it. So taking young children, toddlers or 8-9-year-olds, they will get the reward of the Umrah. And the thing is, if they make mistakes, it's kind of overlooked because they're not really responsible. So it's not a big deal if they're wearing a bit of stitched clothing or whatever. It's not a big deal, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sheikh, we haven't really touched much on the Rauda. Someone's asking, what are the etiquettes that I need to be aware of in regards to the Rauda, or what are the key elements of when I'm there? Anything in particular that you would emphasize there regarding the Rauda?
So the Rauda, the Prophet said, between my grave and my member is a garden from the gardens of paradise. Raudatun min riyad al-Jannah. Then the scholars differ over what that actually means. Some scholars said that what this means in the day after the day of judgment, this part of the earth will actually be lifted to the heavens. Others have said no, it means that doing the prayers in this place, it makes you attain paradise. So anyway, there's different opinions. So everyone wants to pray there. The main etiquette is that, remember, you're in physical proximity to the Prophet ﷺ himself, and the Prophet's bodies do not decay. There's a hadith about this: Prophet's bodies do not decay. So the physical body of the Prophet ﷺ is the way he was when he passed away. And so when you're there, they say that the etiquette of being at the grave of the Prophet ﷺ is the same etiquette you'd have when he's alive. So if he was alive, would you be jumping up and down, making noise? You wouldn't. If he was alive, you'd be kind of standing there out of respect, with your head maybe slightly lowered, and lowering your voice. That's the same way that you should be there, inshallah.
Inshallah. Is the new extension considered part of the Haram, and does it have the same reward?
Yes, because when a mosque is expanded, if you look at the Prophet ﷺ's mosque itself, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was very small, right? And then it got expanded and it got expanded and it got expanded, and it remained quite small. And then the new bit, got expanded even more, and they might even expand it more in the future. So all of that, as you keep expanding the mosque, if the intention is for it to be part of the mosque, then you get the reward. So if you pray in the new part of the Haram, you'll get also the same reward, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah. Faria asks, if traveling as a female without mahram as part of a group, do you need to then follow the Maliki school through all prayers, etc.?
No. You're just taking the dispensation of traveling to Makkah al-Mukarramah from the Maliki school. So that's that part of it. You can pray just as normal, inshallah ta'ala.
Can I get my Umrah visa on arrival at Jeddah airport?
You can get a tourist visa, not an Umrah visa. And if you're going to go, you're probably advised to get a tourist visa, because a tourist visa you can use multiple times in 1 year, whereas the Umrah visa just before that. You can also get an e-visa, which is cheaper, and you can get that upon arrival as well. But it's just as easy to just go online and get it, to be honest.
Okay. Is there anything specific that you should bear in mind to read or say if you do get to touch the Kaaba?
There is a particular dua that is recommended between the black stone and the door. It's called the Multazam, but to be honest, you're never going to get there. It's just not going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. Unless you bulldoze over a few people, which obviously is not the right place to do that. So it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, it's just not going to happen.
Okay. I think we may have touched upon this earlier, but any specific etiquettes when drinking Zamzam, such as facing the Qibla, and does that apply only to in the Haram? Should you be trying to face the Qibla wherever you may be? Any other etiquettes? Just regarding Zamzam, anything we should remember?
Yeah, for Zamzam, to stand and face the Kaaba, and with every sip you take to make a different intention. Zamzam lima ibala. Zamzam is for the intention you drink it with. So you could drink, with one intention for your shifa, another intention for cure from disease of the heart, another intention for the victory of people in Gaza, another intention for the well-being of your children, and so on.
Okay. Yusuf asked, for a nearby hotel, can you pray in your room, or does it have to be in the hotel prayer room to get the same reward?
So we kind of just we touched upon that the most lenient school is the Maliki school. They say that as long as you can follow the imams different parts of his movements in the prayer, you're okay. But according to the Hanafi school, there has to be a continuation of the rows. So if the hotel is very near the Haram, in that the rows have reached all the way back to the entrance of the hotel, then and you're in the prayer room, then that's an extension of those rows. But if there's a gap, if there's a big gap, then it would be a problem for the Hanafis, but it'd be okay for the Malikis.
Okay, if you follow the Hanafi school, can you choose to follow Maliki school for women to travel without a male mahram and go with a group?
Yes, you can, because following a school, yes, you follow school, you should follow school, but do you have to follow school in every aspect of your life? No. Like you could you could go to Hajj and say, right, I'm going to do Hajj as a Maliki from beginning to end, right? So, and you could say, well, I'm going to give my zakat according to the Shafi school, and I'm going to fast Ramadan according to the Hanbali school. They're all separate things. As long as you are doing you're doing it from beginning to end correctly in that school, then your action is valid in that school, and all the schools are valid. But generally speaking, yeah, you follow one because it's difficult to follow more than one. It's too hard. Knowing all the rules is confusing enough trying to follow one.
Yeah. Can you clarify the reward of praying in Masjid Quba? And can it be multiple times a day?
So the Prophet ﷺ, in one hadith, he said that whoever makes wudu and sets out for Masjid Quba and prays there gets the reward of an Umrah. So if you're in Medina, you can actually walk there. They've made a nice pathway. We did it this year. Literally took about maybe 40-minute walk, leisurely walk. And it's a straight line. It's basically a straight line. You just walk straight past where the green dome is. You head towards that way, and you just keep going. And they've now, again, like the Saudis have made it nice. They've made a nice pathway on the way to Quba. You pass by Masjid Juma. That's the place that the Prophet prayed his first Juma. And so that's the reward. That's the reward of it.
Okay, great. Can women cut their own hair to leave the state of ihram?
If they've done everything, and the only thing left for them to do is to come out of ihram, yes, they can cut their own hair.
Okay. Sheikh, you touched on the supplications to make whilst doing the tawaf. Is there specific supplications for Safa and Marwa?
Again, when you're beginning it in the Safa wal Marwa min sha'airillah, from the verse, abda'u bima bada Allahu bih. You make a dua. And then there's no specific real du'as. There's one that's narrated, Rabbik fir warham wa antal azul akram, but that's it. But apart from that, you make whatever du'as you want during the Safa Marwa.
Okay. Is making own du'as permitted during Umrah tawaf, or is it strictly dhikr?
No, you can make du'as, inshallah.
What are the best ways to prepare for Umrah? Is there anything in particular one should focus on? And this is maybe just a good one to maybe come to a conclusion with, Sheikh. You've obviously just been, alhamdulillah, you're still in the zone. So you have hot tips, to anyone that's just now getting ready to go. What are the key things that they should be particularly focusing on?
I think the first thing to remember is, and this is something I remind myself and others as well, especially if you've been more than once and you have become quite regular. I mean, like for myself, I have become. It's not be complacent. That don't think that this will be. I'll come back again. There's no guarantee. So treat it as your last time that you'll see Allah's house. I think you want to try to detach yourself as much as possible from the dunya. So, on your WhatsApp and all, if people don't get a text from you as soon as you arrive at the airport, it's okay. You don't have to keep reporting back. I think try to disconnect as much as you can. When you're there, trying not to get distracted by the shopping malls, the dunya that's around us, and trying to spend as much time as you can in the haram itself. Another thing that I tend to tell people when you're there is, at some points, just sit and just look at the Kaaba. Just look at the Kaaba. Don't do anything. Just look at the Kaaba, and it's almost like you're taking a photo of it in your mind. Close your eyes and see if you can see it. Open your eyes, so that when you go back home to a place like Glasgow, it's not like Makkah, and you're praying, you can close your eyes and you can almost like go back to that place, so you can visualize the Kaaba. And I think the other thing is, time goes very quickly. You'll be surprised how fast time goes. By the time you just go to pray, you do some dhikr and come back, go to the bathroom, you get something to eat, you have a few hours of sleep, and you're up again. Because remember, there's so many people there that you have to go a bit earlier to the haram. It takes you time getting there, time back. Your time's just going to go very, very quickly. So is the most time you can spend the haram, the better for you.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, Sheikh, there's certainly no more questions at my end. I don't know if there's anything else at your end.
We had one about touching the Kaaba. I mean, we've already answered this, that if you're in ihram, then
Yeah.
there's fragrance on the cloth. You should avoid it. But once you're out of ihram, by all means, you can touch it. In terms of the hadith about Masjid Quba, the one narration says the Prophet did it every Saturday or on a Saturday. So you'll see that on a Saturday it'll be rather busy because
Okay.
people are trying to emulate that. But whatever day your ziyaras are scheduled, just go on that day. But if you're there in Medina and it's a Saturday and you got time, I absolutely, by all means, I would say absolutely. If you can walk it there, definitely pray Fajr, do you have your breakfast or whatever, sit out. It's not that hot right now.
Mm.
It's not hot at all, actually. It was not. I was not sweating
Mm.
being outside unless I exerted myself. So the temperature's very, very reasonable right now.
Okay, great. Great. Alhamdulillah. Um, Anything else at your end, Sheikh? Because certainly from questions regards at this end here, we seem to have, alhamdulillah, covered a lot. I don't know as a generality if you think there may be any areas thinking back now. We seem to have covered a lot about Haram, alhamdulillah, Haram, Umrah itself. Anything in Medina, if you can think of, if there's any closing remarks, feel free to come in.
Um, I think that there's lots of places to visit.
Mm.
So when you go to, if you're part of a group, then usually they have visits already part of the package. But if you're going by yourself, you can also do visits. Taxi drivers. I mean, the good thing is that there's a lot of Pakistani, Bangladeshi taxi
Mm.
drivers. Even if you don't know Arabic, and you're from a South Asian background, you'll be able to speak to the taxi drivers. And the ziyaras are they're more or less fixed. So you've got the cave of Revelation, Jabal an-Nur. You've got the cave of Thawr, which the Prophet migrated to, in Makkah. And they'll tend to take you to Arafah. They'll show you Mina, the Hajj places. You might want to climb if you got time and you got health. You want to climb the cave of Revelation. You might even want to climb the cave of Thawr. I've climbed them a few times. The cave of Revelation. It's quite a climb. But this time, alhamdulillah, I managed to do the cave of Thawr, and that was an amazing experience. I guess people get put off because the cave of Revelation, once they've done that, they're like panting. It's
Mm.
hard. They think, okay, the cave of Thawr is even higher. It is higher, but I think it's worth doing. If you're young enough, absolutely worth doing. The insight you get, the insight I got anyway, was amazing. It was phenomenal. I mean, it brought the Sira alive when I was up there and I could see and I was looking and I could see, okay, this is the Prophet came here, stayed 3 days. The daughter of Abu Bakr, Asma, used to come every day. My God, it just brings it alive of what that journey, what that migration would have been like. And actually, now what they started to do, there's actually groups now who will take you on the migration route. So you can now walk from Makkah all the way to Medina according to the route that the Prophet ﷺ took. I think it takes about 10 days or 11 days, I'm not sure. I got text the other day for another trip. So I think that's going to become more of a phenomena as well, that people are actually now going to be able to actually, follow the migrational path of the Prophet ﷺ. So I think those things, and then obviously in Medina, there are ziyaras as well. You've got Masjid Quba, obviously, Masjid Juma. You've got the place where Khandaq happened. There's Masjid Qiblatain, where the Qibla was changed and they didn't know they were facing Jerusalem and they were told to turn around and face the Kaaba. So they played two Qiblas in the same Salah. So and then Uhud as well, obviously.
Yeah.
The Mount of Uhud, people, that's a very common one that people go. You can see the where the hill where the 50 archers were. People climb it usually. You can see the Mount of Uhud. You can see the martyrs of Uhud. Obviously, Hamza is the Sayyid al-Shuhada, the master of martyrs. 70 martyrs there. You can go and pay your respects there. Then you've got the graveyards of Baqi', you got the in Medina, and you got the graveyard in Jawad al-Mala in Makkah. Definitely worth worth visiting them as well. It's interesting. There's a little bit on where the new side is, where before like the Marriott and the Hilton, and there's a little bit which has not been developed. And I was told that this is. You remember the stories where they used to bury the daughters alive.
Yes.
So this is actually the graveyard there. If you see that little patch where there's no, it's kind of cordoned off, but there's no building there. The reason for that is they say that they tried to build on it, but the workers started hearing screams.
SubhanAllah.
They had having nightmares, and people would stop, and they just left it then. So there's that there as well. And then obviously in Makkah, if you go around, there's an app as well. I think it's been developed. It shows you all where the different houses were. But in essence, when you're in Makkah, what you have to try and do is remind yourself that the Prophet was doing tawaf here, the Sahaba were doing tawaf here. All the stories in the Sirah where the Prophet, you remember he's praying and they put the entrails of a camel that happened at the Kaaba. When you're in Medina, to remind yourself that this is where the Prophet was walking about, living his life, and the Sahaba were living their lives there. I'm in the same place. I am at the birthplace of Islam, and really bringing the Sirah alive as much as possible. So definitely that is another. That's another thing to remind ourselves.
Alhamdulillah. Seems to have one more question. The answer regarding 100,000 reward and what counts as praying in congregation, does that apply to women too? Does the same reward apply for women praying in a hotel room?
So there's a hadith that the best prayer for a woman is in her home. So the general ruling is that a female praying in her home gets the same. It's like the same for her as if she was praying or a man was praying in congregation in the mosque. Right. Again, it's about what you're doing, the optimal to seek God's pleasure. So she's not going to. Her reward is not going to be detracted in any shape or form.
Just on your previous point, when we were just before we got that last question there about bringing the Sirah to life, one of the younger boys in our Usra class, he had gone for Hajj, and one of the things he said to me was that he couldn't get over seeing Darul Arqam, just the entrance to Darul Arqam, the house of Arqam, where when we were covering in one of the classes about people would go there, and obviously Umar radiallahu anh comes there, but just obviously we picture these things and these events taking place, and then one minute he's in the Haram, next minute he looks and he sees this small door, and it's that someone's telling him, that's House of Arqam. So you're absolutely right. I suppose taking the time out to take everything else in, because sometimes we're so focused on doing that you forget to maybe just take things in.
Yeah, that door is near Safa, where Safa is, and then also the Safa. When you're there, that's when the Prophet ﷺ is told to give the message to the Quraysh. That's where he stands on Mount Safa and gives the da'wah, and also reminding ourselves of the story of Hajar. This is another, tangent we can go off. We don't have time now, but to actually remind ourselves that, this is where our mother Hajar, was left in the desert with her child, literally with nothing. There's just sand. There's no water. There's no vegetation, nothing. So it's a story of complete reliance on God, but taking the means. So she takes the means by going from between Safa and Marwa looking, but she's completely reliant on God. And her story is so amazing that from that time, God has got every man and woman following in the footsteps of a woman. So all those stories, thinking about the story of Hajar, remember she didn't just come down from the road; she came from Palestine, right? Not on a plane, on a camel, right? So in the middle of the desert, these are the stories that we read to bring them alive. And then, the Ismail rebuilding the Kaaba with his father Ibrahim, and all of those things. You want to remind yourself of all those stories.
Inshallah. I think that's probably a good question to conclude on, Sheikh. Will you be taking any groups for Umrah soon?
Well, we took one last year, last November, and we don't know. We don't have any plans at the moment to take another one. We used to in the past. Myself and Sheikh Ravan used to take groups periodically. But I think now what's happening is because so many people are going at so many different times, we
Yeah.
find that it's very difficult to find one time where our students want to go. People, I think, just go whenever it's convenient, and that makes it difficult then to organize a group. So it's becoming harder, I think, to organize taking groups. But nothing at the moment. But inshallah, you never know.
Inshallah, we'll keep you posted. To all viewers and listeners, Jazakallah khair, as always, for joining us. You've been with Sheikh Ahmed Jamil for the last hour and coming up for an hour and a half now. Alhamdulillah, we have been covering the journey to the Holy Lands, and in particular, today's discussion was around Umrah. Hopefully, inshallah, you found it useful and beneficial. Any further information on this topic, please do visit the website www.isyllabus.org. Watch back the video. This video, inshallah, will be available on iSyllabus YouTube, so you can go back as the program has been recorded. Sheikh Ahmed Jamil, all that's left to do for this year, alhamdulillah, this was our last podcast of 2024. So thank you very much, as always. But no doubt, inshallah, hopefully in the next coming year, we'll have many more interesting talks and podcasts from you, which hopefully, inshallah, our community and those tuning in worldwide will be able to benefit from, inshallah. With that being said, I need to go finish my packing as I leave in 6 hours for Umrah. So, inshallah, please do keep me in your du'as. And inshallah, any tips you've got, feel free to get in touch. But Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you'll be WhatsApping me.
You better believe every single question.
I did that. I just went and used some soap. What did I do? Dr. Aman left, I think, yesterday or the day before, and he's like texting me.
He's actually in the hotel next to us.
Mashallah.
Yeah, that was Yusuf that was posting his questions, asking whether he can just read from his hotel room. So I need to get there and drag him out, make sure that he gets out for Fajr, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jazakallah khair as always. Thank you very much for your time, and inshallah we'll catch up soon.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.